Hi, time check. It's 10:56, 4 minutes before 11 o'clock. And today is the 20th of April 2022. So, coming from yesterday's update, when I said it's 19th, of course. Today is the 20th. The objective of today's update is to give you guys a preview of the coming interaction where the incidents that I have written about will be discussed. So, di ba magkakaiba kasi ang use and purpose of written communication. So, I don't know whether it's going to be a panel discussion. Hopefully, it's not. Whether it's one-on-one or whether two or three people will sit on a table to discuss the concerns that I have, or whether I will be redirected and be ushered into an office with competency to answer the questions that I have written about. So, this is also in recognition to the fact that for any incident, for any report, di ba, it's a first person because I can only speak for myself and for what my records will say. Um, ang pagtatagpo na ito ang magbibigay sa akin ng window to the uh, to the unknown, to the questions, to the answers to my questions. Not only that, the perspective, the information from the perspective of other parties, whether they are the mediator or whether they are the adverse parties. So, whether witness or whatever. So this is also the best opportunity for me to be corrected in my thoughts, corrected in my perception, na hindi naman siya actually, it's part of the process and there's an ordinary course of correcting records and record reconciliation. So, in times past, I wasn't able to make it to this, it's either I had not been able to make it, hindi ako yung nakaupo doon, or somebody in my name had received the information that I should have received, or third, it's that, um, yung narinig ko at natanggap ko sagot, I have used them to guide in the operation of the business. Unfortunately, kulang pa. The information that I had been given, for instance, nagkaroon na kami ng meeting sa third floor sa corporate account ng SSS and nagpatuloy ako sa operation ko and those meetings did not resolve the issues that we are constantly being confronted with. Ay, saglit lang po. Sino po sila? Bakit po? Ay, pasensya na po. So, yun pong constantly, hindi naman po constantly, but there had been times that a well-known family has a member, has a parang kapatid nila na palagi pong kumakatok at yun na, di ba, nanghihingi ng limos. And ang mga kapatid po niya ay doctors and lawyers. So sinabihan na rin kami na kung lalapit sa amin ay huwag pansinin kasi nabibigyan naman siya ng tulong ng kanyang mga kapatid. So, yun, may mga... So, it's really normal na pangyayari sa mga families and neighbors. And so, going back, where was I? Yeah. So in this mediation, usually, so sasabihin ko rin ang mga nag-persist na issues um, coming from guidance and information that I got in previous times na pag-uusap. So at this time, the difference is that the minutes that I have prepared ay may pupuntahan siya um, in recognition of the work that I am doing. Cyberspace ang mga common na regulation, the laws that regulate the kind of work that I do, cyberspace laws or anti-cybercrime laws. Uh, and then there's the e-commerce. So, ano siya, civil code pa rin. Kaya lang nagkaroon ng mga modification and addition because ngayon, the electronically generated proof like receipts upon consummation of transaction, they can be applied for. So, sa paglapit ko pong ito, I have more information now. I can cite particular and specific law and specific in relation to the specific incidents that I am going to report. So, ano po, dadalhin ko po ito, ipapakita ko with TIBC. So, this is part of the merchandise na unang, may business permit ba yan? Diba? That's the usual question. May business permit ba yan? Hindi siya magkakaroon ng business permit kung wala siyang DTI registration at BIR registration. And so, pag nag-cross-border po siya at naging part siya ng e-commerce, that's another ballgame. But hindi po pwedeng mawala ang local regulation compliance. So, dapat palang mag-start dito sa Lucena City. At kung magkakaroon ng problema, at whatever status at this date, at this juncture, kailangan merong at least man lang po proof na nire-resolve ng inyong lingkod, diba? So if it's going to be e-commerce, digital, money transfer, what the first information that will be needed is number one, IP address. Saan nanggagaling, especially kung i-resolve ang bagay na ito outside of the Philippines na may kanya-kanyang server. So the IP address, the monthly payments, kasi usually tao yung gumagamit ng server, hindi bot. Hindi, in my line of work, na, I'm a writer, I'm a film producer, tao, natural person, human being. And that person must also comply with the requirements. Like, yung gumagamit ba ng IP address na yan, ano yung SSS niya, ano ang monthly dues niya para masabing siya ay legitimate person, dun sa kinita niya, nagbayad ba siya ng buwis, taxpayer ba siya. So, di ba, usually, yun ang mga benchmarks ng mga person of good standing, especially when the business will cross border at mag-apply ng visa, tapos ipapakita yung proof of business, proof of income, saan nang galing. So, dapat naka-order, well organized para to save time and avoid confusion. And because talaga information ng business consultancy, yours truly will come up with printed t-shirts as our fundraising, initial fundraising. The visa application sa isang bansa will come after, diba? After we have a tie-up with another business doon sa country na yun for the distribution of our merchandise. So therefore, ano yung visa na i-apply ko? Hindi siya basta tourist visa dahil Pag tourist visa, I cannot engage in any business or any kind of venture. If I'm going to apply for a work visa, it must come with documentations. And dito pa ako nagka-problema why the jurisdiction outside of the Philippines uh, will figure, di ba? Ito po yung na-shelf ko na public event because of the name that I have. So, the premise here, pagpunta ko, for instance, sa Pag-ibig Funds, meron po kasing singer, ang pangalan niya is Clarice. Ang pinagtatalunan po dito ay kung hindi si, not if she's famous or not, but if I am that Clarice. Can I use that name as my screen name? Although hindi mo siya yung kausap ko, although hindi niya pa naririnig kumanta yung Clarice na yon, but the IP address of the public information wherein ang content nila came from the works of this Clarice. Therefore, the IP addresses will now be compared with each other. Anong domain? Ito po ba ay website na nakalocate sa Philippines, sa US, and so on and so forth. That's why, kung sino po yung gumagamit ng IP address na ito, yung pangalan niya, dapat po meron din siyang matatawag natin na, the believability, the credibility and established profession. So, kung ang gumagamit po ng IP address na to ay walang established profession, wala pong basis yung case building. In the same way, kung ang gumagamit ng IP address na ito ay mali-mali yung records, wala bang nagawa na action? Hindi ba naitama? Hindi ba umabot sa punto na na-recognize? Yun po yung force majeure na dahil hindi ako, sa pananaw ko, hindi ako nagkulang upang itama ito, pero hindi pa siya sapat. So kung ito po yung chance din, sabihin sa akin, hindi siya force majeure because ito ang mga dahilan, ang mga kadahilanan kung bakit hindi na correct yung record. So, ito yung pagkakataon po, the dialogues and the communication, the meetings that will take place, ganun siya kahalaga. That's why the minutes of the meeting, dahil verbal siya in person, must have written communication in support of that. I don't know if it will, a video recording will be allowed. So, whether it's allowed or not, I want to have a recorded presentation of yours truly as I present it. So, coherent ba? Meron bang maiintindihan? And dun sa maiintindihan na yon, can it be evaluated, qualitative, quantitative, ano ba yan? Baka naman isolated case lang yan, baka hindi, minsan lang yan nangyari. So, it's not force majeure, really. So, yun. So, the minutes of the meeting, recording of the conversation between yours truly, Clarice, and the person who will entertain me. So, the subject matter of conversation will be whether, di ba ang dami-dami ko nabanggit, parang napaka-complex, hindi siya kayang i-digest ng mabilisan. So, ano po yung entry? Ano po yung initial na magbubukas upang yung mga talking points na sinabi ko na ay magkaroon ng puwang? Sa pananaw ko po, this is the opening question that will open the door for the talking points that I have mentioned. Para hindi magulo. Sabihin, ang dami-dami mong tinatanong, hindi naman siya, ano ba yan? So, applicable ba kay Clarissa talaga ang nakasaad sa Republic Act 8293 o Intellectual Property Code of the Philippines? And yun pong mga na-post ko in relation to my work, because my work should meron siyang classification for public patronage, general public patronage. Okay, nagninegosyo ka, ini-offer mo sa market. Pero ano ang kaugnayan, anong mapapala dyan ng isang Juan de la Cruz na, nagbabrowse lang sa YouTube, bakit ka kailangan panoorin ng, halimbawa, taga Visayas, taga Mindanao, dito sa Philippines, bakit niya kailangang marinig or mapanood yung video na yan when it looks like it's very personal and very private. Republic Act number 8293, ito po yung as stakeholders of the state, anuman po ang igagawad ng Estado sa isang individual, kung ito man po ay tax benefits, kung ito man po ay recognition, may pakialam po ang bawat citizen, bawat mamamayan na nire-representa ng mga magagawad, kung ito man po ay panel, kung ito man po ay may agency ang government na kikilala sa isang tao, sa isang kumpanya, sa isang grupo ng individuals, at magkakaroon siya ng, sabihin na natin, sa iba ang tawag ay franchise, sa iba entitlement, sa iba tax rebate, sa iba award or whatever, igagawad sa isang personalidad, sa isang tao. May pakialam po ang nasa Visayas at Mindanao kung ang estado na magagawad nito ay national in personality, national in nature, di po ba? So, kung ano man po ang branch of government, ahensya nito, natitingin sa credentials na ito, ang nire-represent niya po ay bawat mamamayan ng Pilipinas. That's why, yun po may mga tax rebates, meron silang ibang pananagutan dahil ang pinanghahawakan nila ay espesyal. Kumbaga, hindi siya iginagawad sa kung sino-sino na lang dyan. Sa bawat negosyo, kung merong franchise, siya po ay natatangi. Kumbaga, may particular privilege siya na hindi na-enjoy ng ibang negosyo, ng ibang kumpanya. So, meron din siyang, to whom much is given, much is required. And so this information, dissemination that I am painstakingly observing is in recognition, full cognizance of what it is that I am asserting for. Diba? Pinag-aralan ko po siya sa abot ng aking makakaya, and kung nagkakamali po ako, kung may hindi tama sa ilan sa paniniwala ko at sa legal na posisyon na aking tinatayuan, this is a way for the correction to reach me so that I will be guided, and ang adverse parties na maaapektuhan ng anumang pronouncements ko na magre-resulta sa official action of the state represented by the agency mandated to it, mandated for such an action by the state. Yun, ito po yung pamamaraan, di ba? Sino ba siya? Bakit siya parang away lang naman yata ng mga may kaaway. Since wala naman po kung kaaway na nakikita dito. It's a private matter of somebody na ganyan. So that's why I am mentioning the law, which, which gives me this platform. Republic Act number 8293, an act prescribing the Intellectual Property Code and establishing the Intellectual Property Office, providing for its powers and functions and for other purposes. The Intellectual Property Office, Part 1. The Section 1 title, the act shall be known as the Intellectual Property Code of the Philippines. Before I forget, another reason why I am exhausting all means talaga provided for by law for my work to be registered, recognized, and acknowledged is that if all else fails, I always have that proof of going through the process so that when I bring them outside of the Philippines, it just means I have exhausted all venues and all possible ways to get, number one, to make this available, and two, to make to the regular artists producing the work for commercial um, ventures as a commodity. And if all else fails, I have the option to bring them outside of the Philippines because I have indeed exhausted all means and all venues. And so sa Section 1, the title, this act shall be known as the Intellectual Property Code of the Philippines. Section 2, Declaration of State Policy. The state recognizes that an effective intellectual and industrial property system is vital to the development of domestic and creative activity, facilitates transfer of technology, attracts foreign investments, and ensures market access for our products. It shall protect and secure the exclusive rights of scientists, inventors, artists, and other gifted citizens to their intellectual property and creations, particularly when beneficial to the people for such periods as provided in this act. So without the recognition, imposible po talaga na maprotektahan, ma-extend dun sa gawa, sa likha, sa property, ang anuman na maituturing na kagaya ko na makatutulong. And when it says here, beneficial to the people, it's the Filipino people. So without that acknowledgement, beneficial to the Filipino people, so indeed, sa paghahain ko po ng platform na ito, ipinagbibigay alam ko. At sinasabi ko ang dahilan kung bakit, the 20 minutes, 30 minutes of viewing time will not be wasted dahil it will figure in the, may pupuntahan po siya. So, I am reading this literature from, available po siya sa Gazette ng Philippines. Ang font po niya is 12. Hindi naman siya masyadong malinaw yung ink, yung print, and yet I am still able to read it without my eyeglasses. So, ano po kasi yun sa pag-apply ng driver's license and sa competence ng eyesight, naked eyes. So the use of intellectual property bears a social function. And when we say social function, it means group of people. Diba? Hindi siya individual, hindi siya private and personal. The use of intellectual property bears a social function. To this end, the state shall promote the diffusion of knowledge and information for the promotion of national development and progress and the common good. In case po na since representative democracy tayo, in case po that the agency tasked to review my documents, my personal effects, and I fail in reaching the standards set by, for instance, the Intellectual Property Office or the National Library of the Philippines or the private businesses na hindi tatanggap ng commodity ko. Therefore, wala po talagang I will have no livelihood here. I have no, walang puwang para sa kagaya ko at para sa kung ano man po yung mai-offer ko. It is also the policy of the state to streamline administrative procedures of registering patents, trademarks, and copyright, to liberalize the registration on the transfer of technology, and to enhance the enforcement of intellectual property rights of the Philippines. Palagi pong of the Philippines. So it means national in scope. National ang perspective, national ang platform dapat to reach, to disseminate this information. So this, hopefully this will answer the question on why a Filipino person, Filipino citizen residing in Mindanao, in Visayas, um, why I am asking for a 30 minutes of your time for an hour to listen and to uh, review this video, because you are a stakeholders to the action of the state represented by the agency in question. So the date of the meeting, magsiset pa lang po ako. So date of the meeting, place of the meeting, time of the meeting. So respectfully providing you with copy of the minutes of the meeting between the undersigned and your good self. Your feedback is greatly appreciated. So before ko po i-release ito to the third parties or to anyone na hindi present during the meeting, I will be copy furnishing the written version of how the meeting went. So objective of the meeting, do the provisions of Republic Act number 8293, otherwise known as the Intellectual Property Code of the Philippines, apply to Clarissa M. Talaga as the CEO of Talaga Information and Business Consultancy, TIBC. Para po sa akin, ang meeting na ito ay unang hakbang upang masagot ang katanungang ito. Dahil kung oo ang sagot, merong 4 na nakapaloob na universal moral rights, droit moral. Reference of universal principle of law aimed at protecting the integrity and respect for creative works, also referred to as droit moral. Ang reference ko po ay Oxford, which is in England. Meron din po akong reference from the website ng Harvard sa US about these 4 moral rights. The right of paternity, the right to be properly identified as the author or performer of a work. Number 2, the right of integrity, the right not to have a work subjected to derogatory treatment, Diba parang, oh my gosh, bakit yan ay, kumbaga, to tamper, diba? To tamper, especially with the intention of casting as person or parang bababuyin sa madaling salita. And number 3, the right against false attribution, the right not to have a work falsely attributed to you. So, kung meron naman pong ubod ng ganda na kanta at talagang very professional, ang ganda-ganda, tapos ang pangalan ko po ay Clarice, tapos sasabihin na sa akin yon, nagmula sa akin yon, mali pa rin po yun, di ba? So, kung ako, with my weaknesses, with my faults, meron degree of editing, of modification, pero hindi dapat, pero within my knowledge dapat, di ba? Hindi mawawala ang to the point na unrecognizable na. So, in spite of my imperfections and weakness, for example, sa range na ito, sintonado ito, papalitan ng na ibang boses, especially outside of my knowledge and consent, hindi rin po dapat yun. So, and then number 4, privacy of photographs. The right to privacy, the right to privacy in any photographs you commission. I think it's self-explanatory. At kung hindi ang sagot, kung hindi naman po, kung hindi nag-a-apply sa akin ang Republic Act 8293, so walang dapat asahan na karapatan para sa likha at iba pang pagkakakilanlan ng inyong likod, Clarissa M. talaga, para sa mga nakalipas na taon, especially in 2019. Bakit especially in 2019? Because a lot had happened in 2019. So please check the appropriate number and fill in the blanks. Base po ito sa iba't ibang feedback mula sa mga naunang dialogue sa pagitan ng inyong lingkod at ng iba't ibang kumpanya at individuals at ano na rin po, I take into consideration the initial dialogues with SSS do sa third floor upang magkaroon ng malinaw na paliwanagan. Ito po ang mga lumabas na datos at impormasyon matapos ang mga nasabing fact check and statements given for the guidance of each other. So number one, imposible na ang kausap ko na may taglay na pangalang Clarissa M. Garcia ay ang Clarice na A, isang singer dahil yun po yung hingin ko. Kung ito po yung i-check, ano na po, sana ay makahingi ako ng specific na dahilan. Hindi rin siya ang nobelista at songwriter na may kapangalang Clarissa talaga dahil hindi rin siya film producer dahil hindi rin siya business owner and executive dahil dahil means because. So another choice, hindi makabayad sa utang si Clarissa talaga na siyang dahilan sa pag-uusap na ito or walang pribilehiyo si Clarissa talaga mula sa kanyang membership ID sapagkat hindi siya nakakabayad ng regular na siyang itinatadhana ng batas upang ang isang miyembro ay payagang makautang gaya ng salary loan, capital loan, at trabaho. So, diba? Parang, oh my, ano po yung personality na nakikreate when someone is asking for recognition based on Republic Act 8293, diba? Parang it's out of this world. Hindi siya katugma sa isang tao na uma-attend ng meeting dahil upang pag-usapan ang mga hindi mabayaran na regular fee, hindi mabayaran, hindi maka-avail na entitlement sa member. So, there is a disparity of identification and credentials. So, iisang tao lang ba siya or dalawa or magkaibang tao, basically. So, and number 4, hindi ko masabi na ang kausap ko na may taglay na pangalang Clarissa M. Garcia ay ang Clarice na unang nabanggit sapagkat hindi ito ang nakatala sa aming database. Diba? So, hindi ito yung nakatala sa aming database. Ako po ay mag-courtesy call sapagkat ang nakatala po, ang pagkilala sa akin sa database ay siyang nasa merchandise namin, nasa commodity for release as fundraising para po to address the sinasabi na walang maibayad, walang pinanggagalingan ng income, walang source of income, and therefore we should find ways and means allowed by law to engage in commerce and industry. So, ayon po sa aming record, ang nakatala, ang gusto ko pong malaman, according sa record na nasa database, kasi meron po itinatadhana ang ating batas kung sino ang direct beneficiaries ng isang tao. Kung ang halaga man po nito ay 10,000 lang ang maiiwan or ang kanyang halaga, ang market value niya, ang membership kasama na yung mga points na dagdag, mga dividendo ay umabot lang ng 6,000. Kahit 6,000 lang po ito. Sino po ang beneficiary ng 6,000 na ito? So, some elements na nabanggit ko din po dun sa letter ko, ang Republic Act number 10364 or anti-human trafficking. So in case po sa pag-uusap at talagang hindi siya makakwalify because this is just a layman's understanding and that I will have to give way to the actual law practitioner and law officers, especially officers of the court, in educating yours truly as a non-lawyer, then therefore, the other elements of the business that I have will be answered. The money transfer capability, e-commerce capability, money laundering and other financial crimes can be either cleared or substantiated. So IP address being used by Clarissa and talaga for all purposes, and can it be one and the same as the IP address attributed to talaga information and business consultancy? So, and next, IP address dictates the whereabouts, the GPS, the time and date, as well as information from the public posts. And then the system generation from servers within Philippines, the mga servers located within the Philippines. Uh, ang system generation ito po ay e-receipts, proof of communication, and e-contracts. So the system generation from servers out of the Philippines. May mga servers po outside of the Philippines. And I also have that. So the e-receipts, the proof of communication, the e-contracts, yung content po ng servers located outside of the Philippines can also be used, especially by the undersigned, as the owner of those accounts. Diba? So, mahalaga po ang the answers that will be generated by the meetings. And kung hindi man po payagan ang video recording of said meetings, I'm sure that the written version na kalakip ng ng video presentation na to of where I will be coming from, they will have proper premises and background. So this is yours truly, Clarissa talaga. As I said, today is the 20th of April, 2022. It's Wednesday here in City of Lucena.